Welcome, it's Curtis McHale here, and we're talking with the Art of Focus, and we're going to talk today specifically about what a good review looks like. We're going to talk about three things mainly. First off, we're going to talk about how I do my monthly, daily, weekly, quarterly, and yearly reviews. And we're going to talk about how I tie that to my bullet journal so you can see how that works. I'm going to offer some other time frames that you can do some of these bigger reviews in that I tie to changing my journal or changing the year, just so that you can have it if you don't happen to use a notebook and it doesn't enforce on you some of the movement. Second thing I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to talk about how you do a good review. So what does a good review really look like in general? What are the four tips that I'm going to give you for a good review? And finally, I'm going to go over the two things that a business owner needs to make sure that they cover when they're doing their review, because you have some extra things when you're a business owner to make sure that are running well, are running really good, and to make sure that you know how your business is running and to make sure that you're working on the right projects for your business. Buckle up, it's going to be a long one. Enjoy. So one of the things I wrote about recently was my routines at the end of the day, how I did the end of the day, all the things that I wanted to do at the end of the day, and I showed you how I did that in things, how I had it set up in things, and I'll link to that below. Now, I did that because I started doing a daily shutdown routine, a weekly shutdown routine, and that because I kept finding at the end of the night, I hadn't done my review, despite saying it was so awesome and you needed to be doing reviews. And I just felt flustered. I'd go through the evening and I'd be a little cranky with the kids. I would not be happy with how things were going. And then I'd go through the weekend in the same way. I'd go through the weekend and say, oh my goodness, like I just wouldn't have a handle on what the next week was going to be. I wouldn't have, again, I did my weekly planning video a little bit ago. I wouldn't have my weekly plan all set out. So I just wouldn't know what was going on. That's why I started my routines. Now, today we're going to talk specifically about when we should be reviewing. One of the things I want to highlight first is actually David Sparks. So David Sparks over at Max Sparky talks recently about how he does his review. And where he used to review like 40 projects at once, what he does now is he lets OmniFocus bring projects to him to review. So when he's doing something at the end of every day in his shutdown routine, he looks at the 2 or 3 projects that OmniFocus tells him need to be reviewed right now. And that's how he does it. And then I think he said 3, maybe 6 months, he goes through and he actually reviews every project all in one big shot. And you're going to find out this is really similar to what I do. I do a stage review process that's a little more tied to my bullet journal, and some of the big reviews are tied to, say, moving notebooks or moving years. That's when I do bigger reviews, and that ties in, say, quarterly for moving notebooks, or every 6 months-ish for moving notebooks. Depends on the year. Depends on how active I am in, say, the journaling part of my whole process in my bullet journal. Now, let's start with my daily review. So this is the thing that I do every day. During my daily review, I'm looking over all the tasks I did today. I have a video coming up couple weeks that's going to walk you through an actual daily review. You can see me do it. But what I do is I walk through every task in the day and I see what got done, what didn't get done. Did I make any extra tasks or notes that need to get carried forward or back, or what needs to happen with them? If this is a new task that I didn't know about, so even today, I got to go pick up water bottles for my wife's skating club, and I've got to go do that on the weekend. So we talked last night, and one of the things I had to do, and I wrote it down yesterday, was get a dolly because I have to go over the border. The lineups at the border with the car are crazy, but I have to walk like a block on the other side. So what I need to do is get a dolly, because it's going to be like, say, 32 water bottles or so. And 32 water bottles, I'm going to go get them, and I can just put them on the dolly, and I can just walk back with them. It'll be a big box, but it won't be heavy. So I can just walk back and forth over the border there. I can even actually, we'll see if it's raining out here, because I live in BC, then I need a tarp. And I'll just throw the tarp on top of the dolly. I'm good to go. So that task actually went onto a Post-it note. You migrate it to today. I've already copied that into today's list. And now if there's something that needs to be done, say later in the week sometime, then I would actually copy it back to my weekly spread, which I've shown you. And if it's something that needs to be done, say in the future sometimes, it goes back to my future log. So every day I'm going through all the tasks that didn't get done, and I'm making notes on them to see when they go. Some of them get carried forward to the next day, which I use a Post-it note for. Some of them get carried into the week, so that I can do them, say, tomorrow or the day after. They're just being tracked that way. Some of them are getting carried back to the future log so that I know what has to get done. So next up is my weekly review, and I'm going to do that. I actually often draw out my weekly spread, say Thursday night. It's a late night. My wife's away, and we let our kids watch TV on Thursday nights, and we do family dinners on the weekends instead because my wife is home on the weekends for dinner. But I'll draw that out Thursday night. I'll really fill it in Friday morning. And what I'm doing is I'm looking back at the month, and I'll show you my monthly spread. I've already done a video on that. There'll be some videos linked down in the description as well for you to take a look at. And during my weekly review, what I'm doing is I'm going back over the whole week. How did the week go? What were the roadblocks in the week? And then I'll do some journaling around what I can do to make the week go better, make next week go better. And then I'm looking forward to my next week. I'm looking forward to all the different tasks I have going on. And I'm looking forward to anything else that's happening next week, right? I've showed you how I lay it out. I lay out the bounds to my work in red, and then I lay out my appointments, and I lay out my self-care, and then I lay out work into all that and see how it fits with my life. So work fits into the life that I have to live. I don't fit my life around work necessarily. Except right now, I suppose. I'm recording early in the morning because I have kids that are going to be elephants shortly. And recording early in the morning means that I can get things done. Now, monthly review. So a monthly review is when I take my, and you'll see this in my December Plan With Me video, which comes out later this week, comes out Thursday. So in my December Plan With Me video, you'll see that I've moved my projects forward. And when I move my projects forward, I'm actually reviewing them. I have to touch them. I have to look and say, oh man, I've moved this, this particular thing forward 3 or 4 times. I am not doing it. So I try to stick to the rule of thumb that if I'm moving a project 3 times, I shouldn't be doing it. If I'm moving a task 3 times, then I'm probably never going to do it. Now, this doesn't always hold true. I have a project for a client right now, and that project for the client, right, they said, here's our priorities A and B, and here's some C and D things that you need to keep going on. So I'm working on A and B. When they're done, I'll finally get to C and D, but I can move them forward C and D as long as I want, as long as they're still a priority for the client, and as long as they're still, say, not a top priority. I will keep moving those forward through my monthly review. And when I do that, I'll actually look at my month, and I'll look at it inside the quarter as well. How's my month going inside my quarter? Am I hitting the goals I want to hit, right? So if I have a book that I'm working on, which I'll have for January, I'll be working on a new book called The Freelancer's Guide to Marketing. And I want to have that done by the end of the quarter, if not earlier. And if I get it done earlier, I'll jump into the next book. But I'll look at that, how it's fitting inside the quarter, how am I hitting my goals? And I use something called the 12-week year as a general framework for my goals, but I build them quarterly, and I'm looking at the actions week by week. And so when I go back to my monthly review, I look at the project, and I look at it in the big picture scheme of the quarter. Am I hitting my goals? Am I hitting the places that I want to be, so that at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, I'm at my goals for the quarter? And I'm tracking actions there, right? So I can track how many clients did I contact. I can't track how many people actually said yes. How many calls did I have as introductory calls for coaching? I can't actually track how many people said yes to it, or because that's not something I can affect. I know that when I do more calls, I get more coaching clients, so that's good. When I do more calls with development clients, I get more income because more people say yes. So I can track the actions I can take, the contacting of these people, but I can't necessarily track the results because the results are in some ways their responsibility and I can't control them. The next review that I do is quarterly-ish, maybe 6 months, and it's a notebook change review. And a notebook change review, or my quarterly 6 months review, so the big review, I'm actually going to go through every single thing in my bullet journal. So I've been carrying forward, say, house tasks, and I might actually leave, half a day to just move this, because I'll look at it and be like, I got 5 easy house tasks on there. Like, I need to change the light bulbs in my daughter's bedroom. I know this. I need to actually probably add that to every week because it's so quick. I just need to say, hey, it's a weekend, change the light bulb, fix that light bulb. But I have squeaky hinges on the door. I need to mount some shelves. And so I'll look at those, especially at the quarterly thing, and say, like, what can I do like right now? And so sometimes I'll tear around the house doing like a whole bunch of little house chores on that day in a couple hours, because then they're just done. I don't have to move them forward. And that's the point to that quarterly review. The quarterly review really forces on me to say, like, am I really going to move this to the next notebook? Because if I'm not going to move it to the next notebook, then it's not high enough priority. I need to just forget about it in general, right? And it enforces on me, like, man, I have this whole list of 42 house tasks that I just haven't done. I guess I need to do something about this. So mount that shelf. That's something I maybe need to do today. Maybe I need to do that today. We'll see. And that's what I want to do. So again, what I had done at one point was list all my books. I had this big, like, huge 5-page list of books. That's totally a waste of my time. I need to not have this huge list of books. So what I'm going to do instead is, and you'll see this in my December Plan With Me video in a couple days. What I've done instead is I've listed the 4, maybe 5 books. I have to remember. So a few books every month that I want to read. And that's where I'm keeping my focus on. I'll keep my focus on those 4 or 5 books. And then I will change every month. I'll change my focus. So for January, since I'm going to be working on my own marketing book, I have 4 or 5 marketing books that I'll probably pick out and then go through those books instead. because once I go through those books, I just have a better handle on what marketing is and where I should be with marketing, and have some new ideas to add to my own marketing book. So what's worked for me is what I do put in there, but I also want to give tips on other things that I don't necessarily do well, but I want to give them tips really good. So social media is not something I do well because I simply do not care about it. I think that most of social media is a waste of your time. So yeah, that's what I'll do in my marketing book. Though, right? I'll give you some social media tips, but those are going to be more from other people. I may even talk to our friend Jason Resnick at rezz.com or ZZZ, depending on where you are. So he is really good. He has this whole social media automation thing. It's excellent. I saw he demoed it on, we did a course together on Friday, and I looked at it, I was like, whoa, like I knew it was really cool, but now that I've actually seen how you walk through it, that is way cooler than I thought. I actually need to get that guy to help me with some of my own marketing automation in the new year. It's one of the things on my 2019 list, to hire Jason to help me with some of my own marketing automation, because I am terrible with that too. I'm just not good at some of these things. Anyway, so that's my month or my quarterly, my 6-month review, the one that I use when I change notebooks. Which is at least every 6 months. And then again, at the year change, I do that again. So yearly review. What I do in my yearly review is I start by going over 4 things. And this takes a good couple hours to do my yearly review, because it's a yearly review and planning process. And I've already actually talked, and there'll be a link in the description. There'll be a link here to show you how I'm planning my 2019 journal already. So that should have been out last week for you to look at. And what I'm going to go over, though, in my yearly review is 4 things. I'm going to go over my quadrants, my 5-year life essay, my anti-goals, and my roadblocks. Those are 4 things that I want to do some long-form thinking about. And I literally write by hand. And I know, even if you don't do a bullet journal, a handwritten productivity system regularly, I do recommend that you really write these by hand. I've done this so many times in my coaching program. And what I find is people will do it typed. And I'll say, okay, but write it by hand. And I'll write it by hand, and they get so much more because they're really thinking about it. It's not just a task they're doing, it's something they're seem to be sinking into. And so that's what I want you to do. I want you to go through and really figure that out. If you're interested in the coaching program that's going to walk you through this as we get into January, you can reach out to me. My email is curtis@curtismchale.ca. You can find a link to that. I'll put my email down below in the show notes in the description, and so that you can send me an email. We walk through these 3 things. So 5-year life is literally, it's an essay about like, what do you want your 5-year life to be? What type of house you're going to have? What type of business you're going to run? What kind of vacations you're going to take? What are your clients like? What are your projects like? All those things. What's your income like? And just dream, like give your future kids names if you don't have kids. Give your dog a name if you don't have a dog yet. Tell me where you're going to go. What type of vacations you're going to take? How amazing are they going to be? Write them all down. And then I want you to take your quadrants. They're the same thing. Fold a sheet of paper top to bottom, side to side. You have 4 squares. And then you take it and you go through it and you say, like, what are the 4 most important areas of your life? And give me some bullet points about where you're going to be in 5 years with these things. Now, I know these are 2 similar exercises, but what I find is that people do one, they do the other, and they keep playing off each other. So they keep going back and forth and adding things and revamping it. So really dig into these things. Make sure that you dig into those 2 and you really understand where you want to be in 5 years. Now, next is your anti-goals. Anti-goals, you start with, what's the worst day like? So for me, it's a day where I don't control my time. I want to have lots of time that I can control. And I don't want like meetings where I'm like, oh, this is a development client. Often a development client lately. But a development client that I'm like, I just don't care. I don't want to have any of those calls. And I want to make sure that I'm just on task with those things. So that goes my anti-goals. And then what you do is you flip that and you say, so this is the rules for my life, right? So I don't have this thing. So the rules for my life are, I only take calls on Fridays. I only take scheduled calls. And if you call me, like if you get in touch with me Thursday afternoon, there are already no calls available for Friday. You just got to wait for the next Friday, and I don't sweat it. I just don't worry about it. Those are my anti-goals. So roadblocks. Roadblocks is where you're going to write around what's going to stop you from doing your work. What are the things that can get in your way to do your work? One of mine is recording with kids because they walk like elephants. And so I'm recording at 5:33 in the morning. I'm recording with some light over there and some light behind. And this is just what I got. I'd love to record with daylight coming out this window. I can't do it. So one of my roadblocks is making sure that I record early, and I basically do some sort of recording every day at like 5 something so that I can be on task and so that I can keep my recording going, because the kids just don't let it happen the rest of the day. And we homeschool, so they're home lots. And then with these documents, these 4 things, these are your filter documents. So as you come up with new projects, new things in your year, new whatever, you run them through like, I want to have more control over my time. So when I say, I'm going to say write some software tool and have to support it, this is a bad idea. I don't like checking email. It just doesn't happen. So that's a terrible idea. And I just strike it right off. I am not going to do this. Or if I'm going to, I need to find a way to have someone else to support. So I've talked with a friend and he usually does a 70-30 split, 70 to me, 30 to him, when he sells software things for me, so like software, WordPress plugins, WooCommerce plugins. But if we flipped it, if he got 70, I got 30, he'd do the support for me. Viable way to do it maybe, so then I could take some of the things that I've built for my clients already and I could turn them into a sellable product that he would service for me. That'd be perfect. Now, some of the other things I do at the year review as I walk through, it's kind of my 2019 plan. I put out my quarters and I say, hey, where do I want to be? Like, what projects do I want to accomplish this year? Usually starts with the brainstorm list, right? So one of the things on there is going to be my Freelancer's Guide to Marketing, Freelancer's Guide to Proposals. That's 2 different books. I think I got one other one. Can't remember it right now. These are books that I had previously written that I'm going to update, revamp, and bring them into a series. So I just released the Freelancer's Guide to Getting Started. I'm going to put these all bundled eventually together, hopefully by June next year. Have like 4 of them popped into a series, so you can buy the series on Amazon as well. So what I will do long term is as I go through these projects, I'll come back to them and I'll look at them and see where I'm at. Like, what projects do I want to do? And I'll go through my vetting process, which I talk about in a book, The Art of Focus. I really go through and grade them, like which projects are going to move my business furthest forward, which projects are 10% increase, which projects are 10x increase. We're going for 10x. And then which projects take the least amount of time. So I have ideas for other Freelancer's Guide books, but I have a bunch of the basis already written for some of these other ones, so I'm going to keep going with those ones first. Once I get those ones, then I can start writing the new books again. Now, the other thing I do with this yearly review is I'm going to take it and I also go through and I'm changing notebooks. So I'm doing my notebook change review at the same time of evaluating like all the house projects, everything like that, all these other things that I have carried along with me, and my default answer is no. That's the great thing about a bullet journal notebook. The default answer is no, because if I don't move it, if I don't literally like write it down, it doesn't come with me. Perfect. Now, my top review tips. First, your review shouldn't be overwhelming. So if you feel like you look at your review and say, oh, this is so crazy, this is so terrible, you've done something wrong. So your review should not feel overwhelming. My daily review, not overwhelming. 5 minutes, I'm done. My weekly review, 10 minutes, done. My notebook review, that does take an hour or so as I go through and I rewrite things and I think about it. Now I am planning a little bit ahead as I do this. I see I'm getting to my end of my notebook. I'll actually open up the next one. I'll start transferring some of these tasks over, some of the longer lists over. And I'll do that, say, in the days before. I'll do that, say, well, something's baking upstairs while I'm making pizza for the kids, right? It's in the oven. The kids are watching some TV. I'll move some stuff over because that's just time where it's fairly mindless, right? I can tell easily if I'm going to move it forward. And if I am, I just say yes and I move it forward. That's it. But it should be relatively painless. You shouldn't have to be like feeling like it's all overwhelming. And the second one is touch everything. That means you literally need to like touch things. So not just your eyes glancing down the page. This is one thing I don't love about digital task managers is it defaults to yes. So it defaults to if you don't touch anything, if you don't do anything about it, it just comes with you. Just look, it's just some baggage, this little, I don't know what you want to call it. I want to say narwhal, but I don't know why, because narwhals don't cling to you. But it just jumps on your back and it's sticking with you no matter what you do. So that's terrible. But you want to touch everything. You want to make sure you look at every single project and you touch it. That's what's great about the bullet journal, especially at the notebook change. If I don't move it forward, it's not coming with me. I'm not doing it. That's great. Defaults to no. Defaults to just like letting things go, which is perfect for me. So no is the most productive word you have, and that's the kind of the final big thing for review. Like I said, a bullet journal defaults to no. If I don't move things forward, it just doesn't get done. That's where you need to start when you look with your digital task managers as well. You need to say that, hey, this is just not going to get done. You need to start with no. Once you start with no and you're not moving things forward, just lets you have more freedom. So I even use the say no as a big productivity tip as far as I'm concerned. And it's a big productivity tip because I used it recently. I looked at this guy's database he had sent me and I still hadn't looked at it in a couple weeks. And then on top of that, he'd emailed me once and I hadn't looked at that in a week. So I'm not going to do the project. And I just said, hey, you should talk to my friend John Campbell. He's great. Kuztek, Kuztek.ca. I think .ca, maybe .com. Anyway, I'll have a link down below in the show notes for this. So I said, go talk to John. I know he's got more time. He puts a lot more time into development. I put less time into development, more time into coaching, more time into doing stuff like this. So I knew he would have time for that. I said, hey, talk to John. John's awesome. John's amazing. You should look at him. Kuztek.com.ca. Anyways, Kuztek dot something. So look at him, he's awesome. And so I said, do that. I just defaulted to no, I'm not going to do this project. Clearly, I'm not going to do it. I'm not interested enough in it. So yeah, I'm not going to do it. Technically capable, just don't care. Now, that brings me to our final two things for the self-employed. So the self-employed needs to be doing 2 more types of reviews and making 2 more notes as they go through their reviews during the quarter, during the month, during whatever. So whenever you're done a project, you need to do these 2 things. And the first one is, was the project profitable? So I don't love billing hourly. I think it's adversarial for you and your client. But what I do love is for you to look at it and say, like, say I put in 10 hours and I charge $1,000. I made $100 an hour. So that's good. Is this where my effective hourly rate wants to be? For me, I'd say no. I want my effective hourly rate. I'm looking more in the like 150, 200 range. I'd love to see 250. I see 250 regularly, actually. But I want to see $250 an hour for my time. And then I say, like, was this project profitable or not? And I write a little bit about it, just journal about it. And then at the end, the 6-month review, I'll look back through the project and say which ones were profitable, which ones weren't, and just get an idea, right? So I may find like stuff like that database one I talked about, not profitable. Even though maybe I could charge a lot for them, they're just not profitable. I am not going to do them. What I've actually found is a lot of my writing projects, they're the most profitable work I have, more profitable than being a developer. So yeah, and I've always thought that I'm not mediocre. My friend John, who I've talked about, is just interested in talking about all the new technologies, and I'm like, that sounds kind of boring. So anyway, I like writing though. And the other thing that you need to be doing as a self-employed person is to say, what did you like? Did I even enjoy this project? Because if I didn't enjoy the project, maybe I shouldn't be doing it, right? If you don't enjoy the work, don't do it. If you don't enjoy what you're doing and you're running your own business, it's your own dumb fault. So you got no one to blame but yourself. Stop making up excuses for why it's terrible. Start doing better projects. Start saying no to more things. If you say, but I can't because that's the only projects I get, you have a marketing problem, fix your marketing. Yeah. And if you say, oh, well, we just need so much money coming in, like that you probably have a personal budget problem. Like figure that out too. If you can go, I'm not necessarily a minimalist. I like to live lean, right? I am the guy with 5 t-shirts, 4 pairs of shorts, 2 pairs of pants. And, I have like just a small stack of socks. Basically all my clothes fit in pretty much one drawer, which I admit I bug my wife about sometimes because she's a little bit more exploding in that department. But anyway, but like if you can trim your personal finances, what you need personally, then you just need to make less. It's great. We did this a while ago. I got no debt. I haven't had debt for years. So when business took a dip a couple years ago for a while, like no problems, just kept cruising through. Wasn't a problem to even reduce income. We just kept going. And it was great. Now we did have to, tighten up on taking the kids out so much, doing some of the other fun things we did. We didn't go skiing last year, which was a bummer, but like we're still living, we're still fine. We have a nice house. I have my own office. I have a studio I can set up. This is perfect. So make sure you cut back on some of these things so that you just know where you're going to be, right? So yeah, solve that personal budget problem because you want to work on projects that are fun. So and really remember, the big things in your review is you need to stage them. And that's part of, don't make them too hard, staging them. So you're only doing like a big overall review once in a while. Stage them, default to no. And then if you work for yourself, make sure that you do, is this profitable? Was it fun? Now, all this stuff came out of really 3 books. I've written a book called Analog Productivity, and you'll find a link to all these in the notes. And that talks about how to bring more value to work with paper and a pen. I've written a book called The Art of Focus that really dives in deep to my, not my client vetting process. That's a totally different book. It's coming out later. It dives deep into how I rank my projects and how I decide what's most profitable, what's a 10%, what's a 10x, what's not, and how that all works. So that's another book called The Art of Focus. You can find that at curtismchale.ca/recommend/AOF. And then the book that I just released, The Freelancer's Guide to Getting Started, talks a lot more about just where you need to be planning wise to be a freelancer. It talks more about the project profitability piece and your effective hourly rate and how to do your billing. That's, this stuff all came out of these books and out of my thinking for those. So if you're interested in supporting the channel, dive on into those. Check out the links below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, if you enjoyed the advice here, give me a thumbs up below, make a comment, let me know what you do for your reviews, and subscribe, tell your friends about it. Tell your friends I'm amazingly handsome and good looking, and I wear a cool, you can't see this really, Masters of the Universe shirt. New shirt I got it on ThinkGeek. Cool shirt. Yeah, let me know what you do for your review, and subscribe. If you're watching this on a podcast player, listening to this on a podcast player, if you just got the audio stream, then, give me a heart, star, like, review, everything in the podcast player of your choice. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day. Be focused.